Well, hi everyone. Looks like more trouble for people using the roadways in New Jersey. I want to thank a friend of the channel for alerting me to this story. On Thursday, I'm recording this on Saturday, September 13th. So just a few days ago, a large crack opened up along a length of a road, and I'm going to go over the details here, over a distance of nearly a quarter of a mile. And it happened relatively quickly over a period of about a day. So I'm going to go through what we know so far, what the likely cause of this issue is, and what the likely repair and duration for such repairs is likely to occur here. So let's zoom in on this area where this issue is located. It's in Middlesex Township, New Jersey, between Woodbridge and Perth Amboy along Smith Street. And the area of the road that's in distress is between Highland Avenue and Convery Boulevard. So I've got a red marker here, which is located within this stretch of roadway that had to be closed. And government officials think that this roadway is likely to be closed for months. I think so too. I think this road could be closed for as much as a year, and I'll tell you why. But you can see here, there used to be a tank farm here and a new project to build a nearly 1 million square foot warehouse to replace this tank farm started in January of 2025. In fact, you can see some exposed ground here where it's obvious that they removed one or two of these tanks to start this project. So I didn't see the date on this Google aerial photograph, but I think it's near the early part of this year, 2025. I'm always grateful for local news media coverage of events like this, but they never get the images that I want, the things that I really think are relevant to these stories, but they came close here. This is a still image from some drone footage, and you can see this long crack, and we'll see more detailed photos, but to the left of the photo is higher ground, and the lower ground is to the right. And you can see some exposed ground here, which I think is part of that warehouse project. So they're obviously doing some mass grading, excavating soil, preparing the area for construction of this warehouse. There may also be some contaminated soils that have to be removed that would require excavation. And what I think happened here, I've heard all kinds of wild speculation in social media and even with the news media as to what could have caused this. And it's clear to me, I would be willing to bet, I'll still hold out for additional confirming information, but I believe that whoever was involved with performing these excavations for this new warehouse likely cut the toe of the slope off. And what I mean is they excavated a zone of soil that was providing resistance against sliding for a mass of material that included the roadway at the crest of the slope or at the top of the slope. And this is just example analysis where you select a trial shear surface and you compute the resistance to sliding along that surface. And if the driving forces are much less than the resisting forces, you would expect the slope to remain stable. But once you have movement, failure has occurred and your overall factor of safety in this case would not be adequate. So here's a story about the construction of this warehouse facility to much fanfare. And this article talks about the Raritan River Logistics Center at 577 Smith Street, just within this area of the former Buckeye Raritan Bay Terminal Petroleum Tank Farm. So let's just look at some of this footage. See long cracks. The offset in the vertical plane has been reported to be as much as a foot at this point. You can see several inches of horizontal separation along this crack. The uphill side or the higher side would be considered a slope scarp. Whenever you have a long crack like this, obviously you would consider earthquakes, but there's no reported earthquakes here. You could consider utility rupture or failure. This isn't what's going on here. This is a slide, and you can make out some arc shapes that indicate movement of a mass of soil, but it's a long linear feature here. And it's clear to me that it's a slope stability failure. You've got a mass of soil that's moving downslope, undoubtedly towards the excavation for this warehouse facility that's under construction. Again, I'm going to hold out for more details. I don't see any other likely explanation for what's going on here. And of course, they evacuated reportedly 18 households because of concerns of natural gas leaks and other disruptions to the utilities. So far, that hasn't happened, but I've seen local officials in some of these news stories say that, well, it stopped moving, so it's stable. You can't say that. There has to be a thorough evaluation. Just because the slope movement has apparently stopped relative to the initial failure doesn't, in fact, mean it's stable. And even if it were stable, currently, you have potential impacts from water infiltration, from rain and other sources that could reactivate this slide. So I think they have their work cut out for them. They have to be very careful with this situation. So what are the next steps? They'll need to perform a geotechnical investigation. That is, a geotechnical engineer needs to be in charge of a field investigation program to collect soil samples, to understand the nature of the soils and their strengths, and characterize the depth of material and the zone of material that's involved in this apparent shear failure. One of the local news outlets referred to it as a geothermal engineer. That's not right. It's a geotechnical engineer. That's what I do for a living. I've been a geotechnical engineer for nearly 40 years now. So I'm not offering professional advice for this video here, but it's pretty obvious to me that this is a massive slope movement. And the fact that this movement initiated very quickly, apparently, and it's adjacent to this construction for this new warehouse, common sense, I think, is going to prevail here, even though local officials were quick to say, hey, don't blame the developer right out of the gate. Well, okay, they're trying to protect the interests of the developer. I can understand that. But don't be afraid to utilize common sense. I'd rather see the local officials admit that it's more likely than not, based on the available information, that this slope movement's related to this construction project, but they'll make a final determination once the full study has been performed. That's what they should say. And instead, when you leave it completely open-ended, I mean, I've heard all kinds of wild speculation online that somehow this is related to the drone activity in New Jersey earlier in the year and other things, which is not the case whatsoever. As I mentioned, they'll be drilling holes to sample the soils and send those to a laboratory to understand their engineering characteristics for the evaluation of what's going on here and what the likely repair measures are. They'll also have these holes available to install casings so that they can determine the exact depth of where this shear is likely to be occurring, so they know what mass of materials involved, so they know how broad an extent their repair measures need to be. So I think they've got a big mess on their hands here. Before they can even start repairing this roadway, they need to stabilize this entire slope. And again, this is speculation on my part, but I suspect that the company doing the excavation work here might have excavated the entire toe within their area for this new warehouse adjacent to this Smith Road to cause an apparent slope failure over such a long distance over a very short period of time. So it's likely to be a very expensive effort to first stabilize the slope and then rebuild the roadway and reinstall utilities if that's required. So I'll continue to follow this story as new developments occur. With that, I want to send a shout out to those of you who've contributed to buy me a coffee. That's a great way to support this channel. I also want to thank the channel members and those of you who've provided super thanks, additional great ways to support the channel. Thanks very much, everyone.